Thank you. So what I would love to do is start by just letting you guys introduce yourself other than the quick introduction that I did, and also share maybe one startup that you really like and why you think it's cool. So Dr. Christian, would you like to start?
Yes, Karen, thank you. And welcome everybody. Very excited to be here. Very happy to be here. Thanks for the invite. So my name, as mentioned, Christian Menkens. I'm the CTO of Intact Insurance, IFC, Intact Financial Corporation. For those of you that don't know, we are out in the brand with Intact Insurance. That's one of our brands. And the other one, which is maybe more popular, is Belair Direct Insurance, which some of you maybe see on billboards around Toronto and across Canada. So those are our two big insurance brands that we present in the market. And I'm responsible, as mentioned, for software engineering across North America and our IT technology roadmap, which includes everything around innovation, innovation internally, as well as innovation from the outside, working with startups, working with innovative ideas that come from the outside, even working with universities. So really, the innovation agenda is really top of mind on my side, and my team is working hard on bringing that innovation into our organization across all the different lines of our business and our IT infrastructure and IT world. So very excited to be here. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Christian. What do you want to mention one startup that you really like or that you think is cool, or an idea?
Oh yeah, sure. So one that we've started looking at more, and which as some of you know, insurance is very data driven. And one startup we started to look at in Canada is Flinks. It's very interesting because we see like this core of data that connects so many things in the financial industry as well as the insurance industry. And then Flinks really at the core of this theme that connects a lot of the other very great startups that we see. Well, Simple, Coho, others, TransferWise. So I think this core of the data at the center and connecting a lot of these touch points around financial data as well as insurance data in the future, and making decisions based on that data becomes even more important. And I think that startup is really at the forefront. And we can look at the US and see what journey the Plate made on their side, which is also a very exciting startup that we looked at for a long time. Outside of financial, more in the insurance industry, there's one startup in the US we look at very much. It's Metromile. For those of you who don't know, it's a very innovative startup doing a pay per mile concept and really leading that pay per mile concept on auto insurance. And another one is Root Insurance. So for those of you that maybe sometimes look in the US, those are really pushing the boundaries in terms of auto and P&C insurance, and we're very much looking at that. And of course, personally, COVID gave us more different life and a bit of a different situation. So Ritual and Instacart are really top on my phone at every time and every day, pretty much. Yeah.
I love that. So true. So now I'll turn it over to Anna. You want to just quick introduction and cool startup that you like?
Yeah, of course. Anna Fote. I'm the Director of Digital Transformation at Sun Life Financial. I also teach design thinking at Western when school's in session, because it's very experiential and hands-on. So nothing scheduled for the fall term, unfortunately, but hopefully again in the new year. And you know, my whole career, I'm an unrepentant English major who has spent my entire career with software engineers, and it's just been such an honor and a pleasure to learn and be pushed and pulled by them. So the startup that I love, as a great segue, because I'm a word nerd, is a company called ScriptSwap, which is a company that's using AI to make plain language automated for companies that are looking to make contracts, master services agreements, things like insurance policies, much simpler for people to understand. And I think it's a problem that a lot of people don't understand really how to quantify. So about 50% of the North American population cannot read digitally above a grade 8 level. And most contracts are written at kind of a grade 12 college university level. So that power asymmetry really leads to all kinds of equity and inclusion issues. So because I'm a bleeding heart and because that really appeals to me, I kind of always lead with that, but then I'm also a capitalist. So when you deploy this sort of technology, it allows you to be 30% cheaper and 50% faster. So even if equity and inclusion isn't your bag, it certainly is a super efficient way for you to do that sort of work. And Melissa, who is the founder of ScriptSwap, was named 100 Most Powerful Women in Canada. She's young, she's vivacious, and I just think that they're off to do great things in the world. So a really cool technical startup with a massive social justice mission attached. So Skirt Swap, check them out.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. And I'm glad I'm asking this question because I've actually learned quite a lot. So it's really interesting. So Laith, you want to introduce yourself and start?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So first of all, thank you for having me. Really glad to be here today. So my name is Laith. I am the Senior Market Development Manager at Silicon Valley Bank here in Canada. So Silicon Valley Bank, as you know, is a bank that's been set up in Santa Clara, headquartered in Santa Clara rather, since '83. But we've since opened a branch here in Canada in 2018. So really sort of expanding into Canada and the Canadian market. However, like Plug and Play, we've been sort of operating in Canada for about the last sort of decade or so, sort of coming up here and providing lots of great founders and great companies with venture and debt financing. We look at all sorts of different sort of industries and verticals. Our clientele are pretty much technology and innovation companies. So we are a bank that is geared and built from the ground up to help startups. So we'll look at everything from hardware, software, technology, B2C, B2B, you name it. We'll look at health, life sciences, robotics, IoT, frontier technology, environmental, health and life sciences, etc. My role in particular, I look after partnerships for accelerators and incubators. So how does a bank work with a plug and play, or how does it work with any sort of the accelerators and incubators across Canada, as well as lead the early stage practice. So how does the bank actually help and service any company that is sort of pre-Series A, whether it's sort of connecting them with other funders, other founders, community builders, mentorship, advisory, pitch coaching, etc. Favorite startup, probably give a shout out to Acto. They are a company that I've known since 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years almost. I used to sit across from them when I used to work at an incubator. And it was a group of founders with about sort of 10 people. There were about like 10 people. They were like a pod of 10, constantly, just on the phone, closing deals, new contracts, sales, all that sort of stuff. And it was a really great story because you just always see the momentum and you see the trajectory just coming out of them. Always raising rounds, always closing deals, always securing more customers, always, expanding into new geographies, etc. Most recently they've raised I think it's a 10 million plus Series A, and they've acquired, I think, a company or two, which is just fascinating, and it's par for the course for them, honestly. And for those that don't know what Acto is, they're basically a solution in the health and life sciences vertical. So they use AI-powered mobile experiences and agency partnerships, basically to educate and engage the field reps. So basically engaging, their sales force and personnel to kind of educate them more and sort of sell better. Also gives insights to their supervisors so they can actually see what sales methods and educating tools are actually working or not working, how they can kind of like gear on that.
Really cool. And I love, it is amazing to watch like that passion and energy coming from startups and always be closing. So it's cool to hear that story. So now down to Monique. Manit, I'm sorry, my pronunciation is always going to be off. I'm excited to kind of introduce you as well, because I know that you guys are looking and we have a lot of financial services, and Shopify may kind of seem to be outside the norm. But as we all know, Shopify is taking the world by storm in many different ways, but also providing people around the world opportunities that they may not have to be able to engage in e-commerce. And so with the whole COVID, it's definitely been a very important topic. And I think that it, being part of the financial services discussion is critical. So Manit, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Karen. Very happy to be here. So I'm part of the Shopify retail team, which our product is really point of sale. So Shopify, if you look at Shopify, there are various sales channels, and Shopify provides like an integrated backend for merchants to manage all of these sales channels. So the second biggest sales channel for Shopify is a point of sale. So I lead technology partnerships for Shopify retail. Prior to Shopify, I've worked with sort of large corporations. Like I used to work with Walmart, and before that I was with Landmark Group, which has about 2,500 stores. And I always sort of got this feeling that big corporations, they kind of, they have like certain issues where, for example, inventory management, analytics, and all those solutions. And there were always startups which could solve those solutions and do it better than organizations trying to build this in-house internally kind of thing. But how do you bridge the gap, right? Because it's always tough to like for a startup to enter into the business and go through the whole process of BD and adoption and change management and lead that. So at Shopify, like I found this like this opportunity where we allow all of these startups to integrate with Shopify and work with millions of merchants, whether big, small, irrespective, right? You could work with a plus merchant with massive businesses. You could work with a small business. So just that intersection was really exciting for me, and it's still very exciting. And that puts me at the intersection of working with solutions which are really like adding real value to merchants. We see they're adding quantifiable value. So that's my role really, to find these solutions which have a good product market fit and help our merchants, and some things which are really innovative and can change the landscape of the game. And that's sort of good pivot into like the startup that I like a lot, which is called Hero. Essentially the product, what they do is they connect online, like a store associate, a customer who's visiting a website online, and connect them to a store associate. So let's say you're looking for a golf club and you like driving wherever, you go to the website and you can actually connect. It's like Uber. It's like Uber for store associates. So within 30 seconds, the live store associate can accept that chat and start chatting with the person, giving them information about the product. And why it's fascinating is I feel video is a secular trend which will not only disrupt retail. Retail is just the starting point. I feel it's going to disrupt insurtech. It's going to disrupt fintech, education, medicine, anywhere where in-app video can play a role. I think it's going to be impactful. Yeah.
Yeah, no, interesting. I think all of us just went and wrote those notes down because it is very true and it's very interesting. And you know, I'm thankful I have good internet here, so video is supported. But you know, I hope internet around the world will also increase because I think that's an important trend at the same time. So thank you. So on to the kind of first question. And I'd love to hear from you guys, just jump in. But the first question is, how does your company think of innovation or entrepreneurship as a tool of accomplishing your vision? And then of course, any success stories that you can share. And I'd love to start by asking Dr. Christian, if you want to maybe share your thoughts on this, and then, you know, everyone else feel free to jump in too.
Thanks, Karen. Thanks. And no, it's a great question and a great topic. I think innovation has been always at the top of mind at IFC. We always looked at it as a cross-functional kind of collaboration. Our leaders are really promoted based on how they did drive change and innovation across the business and as well as IT. And one of our goals, for example, that we put out even into the market is that we want in the short term, really three quarters of our employees and our customers to be completely digitally engaged with us. So we really push a lot around the digital innovation. We look at the leaders worldwide around digital innovation, and examples are, of course, things like paperless, self-service, the mobile application, but also in the background, how do we come to a price on insurance? How do we do rating in an innovative way with more data? How do we do fraud detection? And even chatbots and speech technologies. And how we go about this internally at IFC is, on the one hand, we've got our ventures arm. So for those of you who don't know, we've got Intech Ventures, which is in the process of deploying around 400 million in Series A and Series B across companies that are disrupting the insurance, P&C insurance space mostly, but also on the periphery of that. That's the one side where we really look at how do we get closer to innovation? How do we collaborate maybe with some of these companies that we invest in? But it's not a mandatory step. We're not in the business of kind of corporate business development, but sometimes we actually deploy expertise. We sent a vice president to one of our portfolio companies once for a year to really help them speed up their insurance knowledge and expertise. And on the other side, we deployed and created 2 digital labs over the last 3 or 4 years. One lab is dedicated on just digital innovation, web, mobile, design thinking, really customer journeys within our organization. The other lab is dedicated on data science and AI. And with these 2 labs, we really drive our innovation agenda forward and also enable us to be more lean working with startups and working with outside companies. As you can imagine, IFC is also a large corporation, but through these labs, we allow ourselves to do prototyping, to do proof of concepts, to bring in innovation from companies outside of our own organization and try things out across all the different lines of business and all the different business verticals we have. Overall, in our labs, we have roughly 300 people now, so split pretty much evenly between the data lab and between the digital lab. And these 300 people work in AI and data and really collaborate with the outside companies that we work with. And of course, we've got data scientists and all kinds of folks working on digital products. And you mentioned like one major success story and one major aspect that we achieved over the last few years. The concept of telematics and usage-based insurance is maybe a concept that some of you are familiar with, where you use sensors like maybe the mobile phone to see how good is somebody a driver, and then get the discount based on the driving behavior and the driving metrics that we're collecting. And right now we pretty much created the largest telematics usage-based insurance program in the world. And we've achieved that through our digital labs. We've achieved that through working with external companies that provide some of this core telematics technology that we didn't build ourselves. We didn't have time or the capabilities to build ourselves. So we partner with startups out there to build up a system that is creating about 40 billion data points per week for us in terms of driving data, in terms of all of our customers across Canada sending data points and metrics all the time. And we are using this data to really improve the insurance and give discounts to the really good drivers who are less risk. That's been a very good success story, and we built upon this to collaborate with further companies. We included weather data. We collaborated with an external company to bring in some of the very precise weather data that we wouldn't have available ourselves, and we incorporated it in our mobile application to give our customers warnings if there is a thunderstorm coming or a hailstorm coming towards their car or towards the house, in order to support them and give them guidance on how to prevent any damage and any kind of impact they would have. So this has been very successful. The venture side, as well as the 2 labs that we created, has enabled us to accelerate our innovation agenda and working with external companies quite a bit. Yeah.
No, that's honestly absolutely fantastic. I think what I love hearing about that too is how you do have so many people working in that innovation lab. You know, you said I think around 300, and you know, when you look at kind of how innovation spreads, it's when they're able to kind of get that start and be part of an innovation culture, they can then, you know, maybe they'll get their own idea and kind of go out and hire from there. So it's a very healthy economy creator in a sense.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Minnie,
Because you mentioned it, like they start internally, and internally almost act like an internal kind of innovation consultancy to the rest of the business. I mean, IFC is a company of 16,000 people, and we have many different business units and business lines. And then these innovation teams go out into the business and work with them on creating innovation within the business. They're almost like an internal innovation consultancy, and then they're bringing the knowledge about startups and external technology to the table, which is so important because our IFC businesses wouldn't be aware of what technology and what cool companies are out there that could provide a lot of value to us. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard you say one thing, and I just want to see if I heard it correctly, because I thought it was really interesting about how you mentioned at the very beginning, but leaders in your company are promoted based on how they use and structure innovation. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so we are a company that is constantly striving for efficiency and improving efficiency. So every leader is really encouraged to use technology through my technology team and my ties into kind of technology innovation, but also of course business and operational improvements to always change the status quo, always improve how the business is working and how to improve some metrics that they have. So at the end, for us, it's really how do you bring innovation into your business unit that you're responsible for, and then you're promoted based on the impact you're making. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, really, really interesting. Maneet, I know basically your whole role is about and your whole company is really built on the idea of entrepreneurship. I mean, it's the idea of not only being entrepreneurial, but also enabling entrepreneurs. So I just love to hear maybe a comment on it from your side.
Yeah, definitely a great question. So as you rightly said, like Shopify's mission is to make commerce better for everyone, right? We're a product-led company, and that's our goal. Shopify has enabled commerce worth $200 billion. We power more than 1 million merchants, and we directly, indirectly create close to 3 million jobs globally, right? So that's the impact. Now, to enable that impact, we need to innovate in our product. So how we look at it is that whatever friction a merchant has to manage their business, what can we do to remove that friction, right? And you can do 3 things. You can build something, you can buy something, or you could partner, right? Pretty much 3 approaches to go about it, and we do all 3. We build solutions. If you look at our Reunite sort of announcement for 2020, we're in finance, we're launching something called Shopify Balance, which is going to be a bank account, a debit card for merchants to receive payments, pay bills, track stuff, zero minimum balance requirement, minimum fee. We have Shopify Capital, where we've given more than $1 billion in loans, advances to merchants. I wouldn't call it a loan. And this is all AI driven. There's no application. It's all auto. We track the information. We give them like an application. It's really like as accepting as a friend request, as easy to accept like a loan. And then we have acquired, when it comes to acquisition, we acquired 6 River Systems, which is warehouse automation. We acquired them for $450 million. So that's like on the buy side, and we make these acquisitions ongoing. And on partnership side, we have like the entire like a massive partnership program. We have 4,500 technology partners, which is constantly like designed. Not only like it's like that cycle. It's that cycle which how it works is that a good partner comes, joins Shopify, helps merchants successful. They need more partner solutions, more partner come to the platform. So it's that cycle that we've kind of built around it, that we really find like you need to make a system, right? So it's like a system thinking to innovation, in my opinion. And lastly, and not the least, we look at sustainability in a big way. So we have created a $5 million fund, which per annum, which will invest in innovative companies, which are doing game-changing stuff when it comes to sustainability. So yeah, that's kind of to sum it up from Shopify's perspective.
No, that was honestly very, very interesting. Anna, Laith, do you want to comment on any of that? Or I will jump. Yeah, Anna, I see you unmuted.
If you want to jump to the next question, that would be great.
Okay, I'll jump in with the next question. And honestly, I think that Dr. Christian actually commented on a lot of this earlier, but what I really wanted to hear from you guys is if you have any KPIs around working with startups. If so, how did you come to those? And how do you quantify it? And I know that this is kind of a tough question to ask, but I know everyone's interested. I think it's something I'm always fascinated to hear because it's something it's really tough. So Anna, I'll pass it over to you.
Sure. So I'll tell you a little story about a time that I tried to kind of poke on this concept, because I think you're absolutely right. It's a hard thing to do in a big corporation, to have the patience and the wherewithal to be able to realize and to take the time to realize some of those gains. So I'll kind of flip it on its head. It's very simple to kind of say, in a perfect world, we'd like a startup that has positive ROI within 12 months because that makes the board happy, and it integrates seamlessly, so the cost to integrate is small, and to create kind of KPIs around this immediate impact. And I wish it were that simple, or because then our jobs would be much easier. But in my experience, it tends not to work like that. And so the story I wanted to tell you was having this conversation in a previous life with a very senior person at one of the big 5 Canadian banks who worked in innovation and IT kind of at a very senior level. And I asked him, he basically had me in his office and he kind of fire drilled me with questions for about 15 minutes and then literally said to me, okay, you're not stupid, so you can stay. And I thought, okay, wow. I felt like it was a test, and it in fact absolutely was a test. And I understood he was kind of tired of a bunch of innovation ninjas coming in his office telling him what to do or how he should do it. It's complicated and it's different for every organization. But I think the thing that we fail to think about, and one that maybe is easier to quantify, is this idea of quantifying the risk of doing nothing, or quantifying the risk of time, or missing a market. So, there's a lot of emphasis on the amount of money being spent, the amount of staff resources, or the amount of time that is invested into a project, especially internal IT projects inside big companies. But my question to him was, so you've done this project cycle, and it's taken you, let's say, 6 months between stakeholder groups and meetings and PowerPoint slides and executive committees and getting approval and buy off and sign in. What's the cost of that time? And is it greater than the benefit that you hope to achieve? And he kind of looked at me and he was like, oh, I don't think we've ever thought about it that way. And, I think it's easy to fall into the trap of the fear of the unknown, but inertia is its own risk. So in terms of kind of KPIs that I would offer, the risk of not doing anything is something, no matter what your KPIs are, is something that you should look at and take a hard look at as an organization.
Yeah, honestly, that was fantastic and really interesting. So thank you. And I actually, just this past week, I read the book Catalyst. And it's funny because the whole chapter was about that. And I feel like it's so true. We all, the risk of the unknown, but you have to look at what's the risk and the cost of doing nothing. And I think that actually speaks to human behavior much more than the amount gained. So that's a really good way to look at it. Laith, I know that you're focusing on building ecosystems and providing a lot of education for entrepreneurs. And so my question for you is, how is that measured, or what are you looking at in that? Because obviously it's an amazing initiative. I think this is something we all struggle with. Even Anna was speaking about the startup that she liked earlier in terms of like, when it's doing so much good, how do you measure something? So obviously it's different, but question to you, Laith.
Yeah, sure. So I think in terms of KPIs, I think there's 2 different sort of levels that we're sort of looking at here. So if it's a company that we're able to sort of facilitate and do sort of lending with, or turn them into a client, obviously that's the KPI there. But on the early stage practice side, so currently because of the regulations and licensing and and all that, on the early stage, what we're currently trying to do is build out that ecosystem. So it's like, how do you actually help, and how do you scale, like how do you actually grow the entrepreneurial ecosystem here, and actually how do you help nurture it, and how do you add value to it? And the one thing that we're trying to set ourselves apart from the traditional banks, so from the big 5 rather, is it's easy for you to sponsor something. It's easy for you to go put promotions up on a wall, or kind of say this event is sponsored by X, Y, and Z. For me in particular, when looking at the early stage, I would much rather roll up my sleeves, figure out how we could actually get involved with the programs. And when I mean get involved, I mean meet with the startups on a regular basis, learn their stories, learn what kind of challenges they're facing, what kind of disconnects there are in the ecosystem, and then act as that nexus, or act as that sort of synapse, or sort of connecting node, right? Is there an investor that I can help you, that I can help introduce you to? Is there some tweaking for your business model that is needed? Do I need to put you in touch with someone that can look at your pitch deck and improve it? Do you need coaching on various aspects of your business? We're happy to do that, and that's basically for us that gets a lot more value. I feel generates a lot more value prop for the bank with respect to the other banks, just because at the end of the day, these are our future clients. These are future potential clients rather, and this is the target audience. this is who we work with, and this is why this bank was actually established, to kind of work with these innovation companies. On the KPI front, it's mostly, I would say, connections facilitated, the number of workshops that we host, who's attending these workshops, are they a fit? Has this workshop been reviewed well? Are we targeting the right type of entrepreneur? And are we able to help them? Whether it's connections, advisors, mentors, office hours, et cetera, you name it. Basically, the way I tend to look at it is you put the founder in the center, and then you build everything around them, and you make them the ultimate mission.
Wow, yeah, I love it. And I love all the work that you're doing in terms of that. It's been honestly it's been a fantastic journey the past month getting to know each of you guys, because I think all of you are doing something really, important in helping and have such a good goal at the end of the day, opposed to just saying, hey, we're just here doing our jobs. It's so much more than that, which is a cool journey to be on. So thank you, Laith, and I excited to see some of the workshops and whatnot that you continue to do. So another question I'd love to, and this is honestly kind of open for any of you guys, but are there any learnings that you'd want to share with the audience? As I've mentioned before, I've done a couple of roundtables with corporates, and I think I learn the most even through failure stories. And so if there's any learnings, I'd love to hear them if you would like to share.
I'm happy to jump in. I think I've had the great fortune of kind of riding the rocket ship that was BlackBerry in the early 2000s. And I think the lesson that I learned from it that I continue to use to today is that in a very early stage bleeding edge innovation is scary to a lot of people, and that's okay. You don't need to do a kumbaya and have everyone under one tent to get started. The fringy ideas are always the best ideas, and it always takes kind of mavericks or kind of people that will take on risk. I joke that I lack the gene for self-preservation because I've taken on many projects in my career where people go, that's a really bad career decision. And I was like, I don't know, it's going to be fun. I don't know how it's going to end, but it's going to be good. I'm going to learn something. So I think there's not tons of people like that. And I think people that are built that way get frustrated when other people kind of can't see the vision. And I just think knowing that as the idea gets de-risked, I think of it like stops in a bus stop. So like a bunch of mavericks get on stop number 1, there's no one on the bus, and that doesn't bother them one bit. And you kind of drive around the city and more people get on the bus, and the more people see how many people are on the bus, the less risky it is to get on the bus. So be patient with people that maybe don't see the vision right away. And it has nothing to do with the idea sometimes and everything to do with their own risk tolerance. So just be patient, because some of those people are the best contributors when it's safe for them to get on the bus.
Wow, that was honestly the best advice I've heard. I feel like you were speaking right to me, so that was great. Thank you, Anna. I love that. And I think it's so true. I mean, when you look at the things that are difficult, we all look at startups and say, man, that's difficult. But until you're actually there, you don't realize how difficult it is. So really good point. And, I actually have to wrap up. I think we have a minute left. But if you guys have any last comments, maybe I'll just go around really fast. I'd love to hear one exciting or one trend that excites you. I'll start off by saying drones. I'm very into droning, and I'm excited to see where that trend goes in the future. So Dr. Christian, you want to maybe share one trend that excites you as we wrap up?
Yeah, and I stick to insurance, and what I see is really kind of new distribution of insurance amongst other channels. Like for example, in platforms like Shopify, or really having your insurance and your product right there as a solution from something you buy. Maybe with a car dealership, you get a car insurance. There's a lot of movement around this in kind of insurtech and fintech, and that's really something very exciting for us to see where this trend is heading and where do we see this in Canada going. Yeah.
Yeah. Anna?
Digital identity with the tension of ethics. So the power of having us all connected a la Estonia in a way that does not deprive people of their privacy and is done in an ethical way. I think, to me, it's an obsession. I nerd out on it. My team is tired of me talking about it, but I think it's a massive opportunity, not without significant risk.
Laith, thank you. Yeah, Laith.
Yeah. So I think technologies that will help, any sort of like technologies and verticals that are focused on helping accelerate the return to normalcy or the new normal sort of post-COVID. So literally on the health life sciences or anything on the logistics or anything that's sort of be in real life. And then Karen, you just reminded me of drones. Actually, that was something that I was really big into, I think like last year. And right now you've just reminded me of a company I need to reach out to actually, that is looking at sort of building sort of like the future highways for like drones. And it's kind of very, very interesting.
Oh yeah, and I'm curious about that now as well, because that is very interesting, and I think especially in Africa, it's the new frontier. So, and we can talk about that later. That's interesting. So Maneet, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, cool. On drones, like one of my MBA's sort of the thesis on my strategy innovation class was ethical use of drones in Africa. So
Really?
where we started like various things from medicine delivery to whatnot, and one of the companies that came out of my university, like Oxford, is still doing, it's called Denstra Systems, and they're going to be using drones to plant trees, and they just raised like $10 million, and they're already doing it for like mining companies like Rio Tinto and whatnot, who have a obligation to restore the forest that they destroy when they mine, right, kind of thing. So really excited about that. Coming back to sort of my current world, which is not drones to any extent, is basically a video. So video from, not only from the perspective of like Zoom and all those things, but how video will disrupt like pretty much like all industries, but to bring more human connections where the transaction was more like just a transactional thing, like bring more human connection to it. So that's something that I'm really excited about. And third is like agri tech. That's where I'm personally like really interested in, like sustainability and agri tech. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. Honestly, I loved this conversation, and I appreciate it. So we're going to now head over to hear from some of our startups. Thank you guys.